Welcome to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. Today we have one of my favorite people. Whenever I see her, she is so full of energy. She's so spunky, but she's just genuinely happy. And I believe that you can just see her faith shining through her at all times. And you know how when you come up upon someone and you can just really feel that they love Jesus? This is who I'm talking to today. So I'm excited to announce that we have Shemane Nugent on the program today. Shemane, thank you so much for being on.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Absolutely. And you have a new book out, which I was reading through before I got on the podcast. And I'm just like so excited about just the titles of the different chapters. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing for people to be able to go through. I never even thought about Bible-based wisdom for weight loss, but it's very cool. So it's called Abundantly Well. And the full title is Abundantly Well, Bible-Based Wisdom for Weight Loss, Increased Energy, and Vibrant Health. And I just love the fact that you came out with this, but it's kind of like it was birthed out of a bit of a tragedy because you almost actually died, right?
Yeah. My home that was in Michigan and once featured on MTV Cribs got contaminated with toxic mold between the walls. We never saw anything. We just all kept getting sicker and sicker. My husband, Ted, our son, Rocco. And since I was in the home the most, I got the sickest. And I had 4 different types of mold in my bloodstream and pre-emphysema, debilitating migraines, and so many other things. But I made a promise to God that if I could learn how to heal myself and my family, I would share this information with other people.
Wow. So how long ago was that you found this?
That was actually in the year 2000. So 2002, I started getting slow symptoms like debilitating migraines. And meanwhile, I owned a fitness studio in Jackson, Michigan. And I was teaching 15 high intensity aerobic classes during every single week. And I was eating kale before kale was popular. And all of a sudden, no doctors could help me. I just kept getting sicker and sicker. And Ted had to rush me to the hospital many times for not just migraines, but heart attack symptoms. And
wow.
No doctors gave me anything other than prescriptions. And I thought, this is not right. So I did a lot of my own investigative sleuthing, and ultimately we found that toxic mold was growing where we couldn't even see it between the walls. And that was the source of my illness, Ted's, and our son Rocco's too.
So how many people do you think have this in their walls? I'm just curious because I've had a relative who has similar symptoms to that and found a situation where the air conditioning unit had been seeping into the walls of the house and ended up with mold in the house. How do you know it's toxic? How do you know it's happening? I mean, it seems like for you, because I think this happens to a lot of women. Women are the ones in the house more. They're getting the kids ready. They're more vulnerable. They're smaller. And it seems like it happened to you much worse than it happened to Ted or Rocco. And then suddenly it's like, are you having these experiences or are they in your head? And then you did the sleuthing and found out. But do you think that a lot of people end up being told for way too long this is in their head?
Absolutely. And you're right, especially women. There's a couple things going on. Women take on the emotional anxiety of the whole family, getting the kids ready, getting them out. Not saying that guys don't do that. Husbands don't do that as well. But I think as nurturers, I did some investigative sleuthing. Male testosterone protects them a little bit more against things like toxic mold.
That's interesting.
But also, if there is an emotional situation that can set you, think about if somebody's ever said something to you that kind of feels like a gut punch, like Mike Tyson punched you in the gut. You can't really describe it, but there is a physiological result of that emotional toil. So an emotional situation happened to me and my family just before that. And I think that did set me up for getting sicker than anybody else did. But also to answer your question, 80% of homes have some form of toxic mold. My guess is it's 100. We're surrounded by mold every day. We go in and out of our homes. People will say, well, there's mold outside. Absolutely. But when a mold remediator, the right mold remediator, unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there who A, don't know what they're doing, B, don't take the time to research, and C, just want to rip you off. And we are led astray by so many people we're trusting. But if if they do a mold test, usually what they'll do, there's a couple of different ways to do it. And I go through that in my book, Killer House, extensively. That's available on Amazon now. But if you have a greater concentration of mold spores in your home rather than outside where they're meant to be, there's a problem. And everyone I talk to knows somebody who has either mold has affected them or somebody that they know. And it is a too prevalent problem. I'm hoping that somehow I can get to RFK and go, pick me, choose me. No, I want to bring this issue to light because it's happening to too many people. Too many kids are taking medications that they don't need for asthma, allergy,
Yes.
ADD. We all have symptoms like everybody's got something that people can doctors could write off as stress. Oh, you can't sleep. You've got fibromyalgia. You've got joint pain, short-term memory loss, brain fog, little things, skin rashes, little things that we can add up to. Yeah, you can check it off as stress. But I will tell you, Tudor, almost every symptom, including cancer, can be connected to toxic mold exposure.
Wow. So you said you had 3 or 4 different types in your bloodstream. How do you get tested for that?
Again, there's a couple different ways, and there's some doctors who will literally write it off. Like you said,
Yeah.
it's all in your head. And that happened to me. Think about, people are actually starting to talk about toxic mold now, but this was 20 years ago for me. And quite honestly, if Ted didn't have some of the similar symptoms that I did, he had headaches, he didn't have migraines, but neither one of us could sleep for about 2 years. And one of the reasons why we both came to the conclusion that it was our house is that, he was on tour. We would go away to even places like London where it's rainy, and we would sleep amazing and go, wow, that's what sleep is supposed to be like. Your home should be a source of healing and remedy for the stress. It shouldn't make you sicker.
Yeah, that is crazy. I mean, and I know that's not really what the book is about, but that part of it was so fascinating to me that I had to kind of go there because I had to really understand, okay, you went through this. And I think so many people, like you said, they have these ailments that they can't fix and immediately, and people have heard me talk about this on the podcast. I don't love the idea of immediately going to an antibiotic or going to a pharmaceutical of some sort because I feel like we rely too heavily on that. And I think that every time you put these medications into your body, you make changes to your body, and it's really hard to detox from that and make your body go back to the way it was supposed to be. So I think a lot of people do end up stuck on some medication that's actually not resolving the symptoms either, because obviously if there's mold, then you're not going to be resolving those symptoms. But you've brought faith into this too. So tell me a little bit about your faith journey and how you brought faith into healing and healthy lifestyle.
Well, I wrote this book Abundantly Well because I've been a fitness instructor since 1980. I was actually once named Detroit's most physical female.
Wow.
That contest took place at a bar, but I still won. It was way back when we were doing aerobics in the 80s, 1988. I believe it was Streamers nightclub in Sterling Heights, Michigan. But I'm claiming that. Anyways,
I own it.
I've been a fitness instructor for a long time, and I see so many people coming to me, women especially, with a lot of the same problems. And I too, I want to put this out there. I love to eat. And in college, I went to Central Michigan University. In college, I was 30 pounds heavier than I am now. And this is one of the other things that I was one of those people that I was a high school athlete. I was a state champion swimmer 2 times. And then when I got to college and I didn't work out as much, I thought I could still continue to eat Hostess cupcakes and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And that's not how it works. So I struggled along with a lot of other people who still struggle. And I realized that, number one, putting fitness first is a big deal. Fitness has to be, in fact, I'm doing a lot of interviews now for this book, and I'm like, I gotta walk the walk because I'm letting my fitness really slide a little bit, and I've got to put it back onto my priority, because if we're not healthy, we can't continue to help other people. And this
Well, let me ask about
go ahead.
fitness, because I think a lot of people, especially when you're busy, when you're working, when you're traveling, when you have kids at home, you tend to put yourself last. I think that this is probably true of many women. I mean, probably many men as well, that it's just kind of like, I've got to get, I mean, there are times when I think, okay, I look at the month of December. If I get through to the end of this month, I've made it. Like, I just am trying to power through every day. It's like, I know I have this in the morning. I've got work. I've got to get home and make cookies for this thing
Yes.
at school and that thing. And, by the end of the day, you are exhausted. So when you say fitness, like, what kind of fitness are we talking about? Because I think I'm like that person that I'm like, well, if I didn't go down and do like a hour workout where I'm heavy lifting weights and I'm running on the treadmill, then I haven't done anything. And therefore, then I really don't do anything. And it's a bad cycle.
Yeah. And
This is a confessional moment.
we all go through phases in our life, and certainly, as we age, our bodies change. And for me, fitness looks a lot different than it did when I was teaching 15 high intensity aerobics classes per week. Now, for me at 62, if I can get in literally a 20-minute HIIT workout, I'm golden. Every day I try to move my body. The other thing I found out is that I have a form of scoliosis. So if I don't move and I don't stretch, my back literally kind of freezes up. So it's making fitness a priority. If you've got 5 or 10 minutes, here's one thing that I do. Every morning when I make coffee, it takes a couple minutes to brew. I don't have the automatic setting or whatever. So while I'm brewing coffee, I start doing my stretches. I start doing things. Maybe I can get in a few squats. If you can do 5 minutes of workout 5 times a day, I'm not a mathematician, but that adds up to be a pretty good workout. And if that's all you can do during this season of your life, during this busy season, it's okay. We walk our dogs.
I mean, then I have to put my phone down and stop scrolling while my coffee brews and actually do something. And that's something, honestly, I think I'm hoping I'm not the only one that actually has to think, why are you taking time? Like, I'm like, oh, I have a few minutes. I'll just scroll the news. No, stop. Take care of yourself.
It's so easy, again, as women, to put the needs of everybody else before our own. But there's the flight attendant says, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you help other people. And I think that's what we've got to, as I age anyway, again, there's a season when I had a young son, he was the priority, and my husband on tour, they were the priority. Now it's a little bit of me time, but I realized too, as a fitness instructor, again, I like to eat, but I work out. I try to work out, teach classes a couple times a week, and try to get it in, into my schedule to make fitness a priority. But we have got to start putting ourselves first, making ourselves a priority, because I see too many women my age, 50s and older, that wake up and go, wow, I put the needs of my kids before me, and now I'm 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight. How do I lose the weight? So in this book, Abundantly Well, I want to be your cheerleader. I want to walk alongside with you, because I understand what it's like to struggle with weight, struggle with health. And it's not easy. And if all you can do today, it's like you said, just getting through the month of December with all the parties, and we know we're going to eat a little bit extra food. Sometimes it's just focusing on the day. Can you fit in a 10-minute workout? And if you've ever done HIIT, high intensity interval training, you can sweat unbelievably with a 15-minute HIIT workout if you do it the right way. And there's so many resources nowadays with online fitness classes. They're available to us. Take your phone out while you're making your coffee, do 5 minutes of squats.
So you're taking away all of my excuses. So I'm going to have to start doing this. But food, you talked about RFK. You are a proponent of natural foods. Tell us about how you figured that out, because I think that a lot of Americans have suddenly woken up to this, to the point where I will tell you, this morning I was watching the news and they were talking about seed oils on the news. And I'm just looking through some of the things in my pantry that I guess I'm like, oh, it's a granola bar. It's healthy. And I look at it, I'm like, oh my
No,
gosh, this is a
I know.
nightmare. This is like cancer in a tiny stick that I'm giving my kids every day, you know?
Yes. Well, unfortunately, like you said, I learned the hard way. I got sick and almost died. So part of my recovery was detoxifying my body. I have to tell you a funny story. I went to the Environmental Health Center in Dallas. I was there for a month, detoxifying, like getting rid of all of the chemicals and helping my body heal naturally with functional medicine like infrared sauna, vitamin IV, oxygen, and completely changing my diet. But the funny story is, Ted was doing a radio interview one time and he goes, yeah, my wife is in rehab. I go, no, honey, you can't say that. No.
No, this is like a wellness spa, dear,
No,
not
it is
rehab.
Yes. But one of the things that I learned from Dr. William Ray, who basically saved my life, Suzanne Summers wrote about him. He was my doctor. 20
Really?
years. Yeah. She wrote about him. She did a telephone interview and wrote a series of books interviewing him, but he was my doctor. And I'll never forget, I came in there barely able to his facility, barely able to walk up a flight of stairs. I needed help getting up the stairs to get into his office. And I had a water bottle. I had zero energy. And I was Detroit's most physical female, 2-time state champion swimmer in Michigan, and all these other things. And I had a water bottle, plastic water bottle in my hand. And Dr. Ray said, you can never drink out of plastic again. It set me up for a course of asking why. Why are we drinking plastic when plastic water bottles and containers, whether it's sodas, which you shouldn't be drinking, but when they're transported, especially in Texas, it's 100 degrees. They're not in cooled containers. So all the chemicals in the plastic leach into the liquid and you're drinking that. You're drinking cancer, basically.
Oh my
And
gosh, my entire desk is covered
I'm
in
sorry.
water bottles that I've been drinking. Like, great.
I'm
Sarah's
sorry.
looking at me like, no, we're getting rid of these.
So it's I lay all this out in my book. It's a whole nother category for other people who really, we've been sold a bill of goods that has been detrimental to us ever since the 70s, when we really learned of fast food in the form of frozen dinners. Oh, it's great. Women can go back to work and you can just pop something in the microwave and feed your family. I grew up on frozen dinners. I understand that.
We were it was like the TV dinner. You had if you were lucky, you had a brownie in it, and it was, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Swanson ones or whatever it was. But yes, I became a label reader after I got sick and almost died. I had to look at everything that I was putting into my body as, if it's in a box on a shelf for months, you look at the expiration date on Hamburger Helper or so many other things. If it's there for months or even years, is that good fuel for your body? Why not get back to God food? The closer we get to the hoof, the ground, or the tree, the better. And as a hunter, I used to be kind of but intimidated about sharing my hunts and my harvests with people on social media. But now I'm so proud because, number one, hunting is really empowering for women, but also I'm feeding my family and myself with pure lean venison, and animals that have the opportunity to exercise like we do, they're healthier. So if we're ingesting that, it's healthier for us. And we know that white-tailed deer, our deer are not fed up with antibiotics and chemicals and steroids and things like that. And it's healthier for us. And when I was at Dr. Ray's, it's funny because when people found out that I was a bow hunter, it was kind of like I was the drug dealer in the facility because they were like, can you get me some medicine? I'm like, yeah, I'll
Love
meet you
that.
outside afterward. No.
Well, but that is something I find this interesting because this is something that I feel is being discouraged by a lot of people. You said you didn't share it openly on social media. There was a time where if you did share that you were a hunter on social media, you got really viciously attacked. I believe you still have a home in Michigan. You're from
Yes.
Michigan. So you may have seen that in Michigan, I think we're in the top 5 for car accidents with a deer because hunting, I believe it's because hunting has become not only demonized, but also it's become expensive. Now, the legislature just passed a bill to double the cost of a hunting license. So you're going to end up costing people more. What you said is like, the natural meat that doesn't have any antibiotics in it. Why do you think that is something that it's like a leftist agenda to get rid of hunting when the cost of having these excess deer is outrageous? And then, what's interesting about this? In Michigan, in our town, they have a limited amount of licenses you can get. They limit the amount of hunting that can be done. The deer population became so out of control. They hired sharpshooters to come in and shoot them
Yes.
all.
Yes.
What is that?
I think there's a nefarious agenda here that they want to control our food source. And in Texas, do you know
That's
that
probably
because of
it.
CWD, chronic wasting disease, because of the fear of it, they are slaughtering Texas Parks and Wildlife are slaughtering hundreds of thousands of white-tailed deer that are in enclosures. There's a lot of white-tailed deer breeder, and God bless them. If they want to raise deer and sell them, what's wrong with that? You're providing not only millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars that is economically feasible for each state, but also getting the family together and living off the land. And in Michigan alone, there are 100,000 car deer accidents per year. So I don't know about you, but I remember I had bought a car. I'll never forget. I bought a brand new Suburban. I'm driving home one October evening. It's dark, and I'm driving home from the dealership with my brand new Suburban, and a deer jumped out right in front of me. Now, it wasn't killed. I did $20,000 worth of damage to that vehicle. But what if you saw a deer flopping on the side of the road? You're going to let it die and suffer like that? So there's a lot of things that as hunters, we disagree with what they're trying to do. I think it is controlling our food source and requiring us to go to them to buy chickens and burgers that run through so many processing plants and that are fed up with chemicals and steroids and even toxic mold to make them look better for a longer period of time. And the meat that you buy oftentimes on the store shelves, they have food dyes in it to make them red. So unfortunately, there's a lot going on. I don't trust, it used to be Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help are the 9 most dangerous words. And I do believe that's happening. And what a shame. In my home state of Michigan, the winter wonderland, where there's so many millions and billions of dollars, people go up north to go hunting every season, and they go to restaurants, and I just got goosebumps, and they go to hotels and motels, and it's family time. They want to take this away from us. They want to say, there's a lot of states that require that you can't hunt on Sundays. When meanwhile, if you work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and you are working doing the honey-do list on Saturday, the only day that you have available to hunt is Sunday. Why do you think that they're doing that to us, Tudor?
Well, and why would they? This is the thing that drives me crazy is that nobody's standing up and saying, why are you doing this? Because it has made, well, I can speak for the state of Michigan, as you just mentioned, the 100,000 accidents. It has made the roads unsafe. You have a real problem with overpopulation. You have a situation where people could be eating and they're not. You're slaughtering these animals and you're not doing anything with the meat. I mean, that it's an industry. I mean, in the state of Michigan, this could be a billion or multi-billion-dollar industry that we're not taking advantage of because we are trying to kill the industry altogether. So the logic behind it from the standpoint of running a government and running a state it makes no sense. So there has to be a nefarious agenda here, because I mean, you talked about hitting that deer. I will tell you, about 10 years ago, we had friends whose family was in an accident with a deer. The deer went through the windshield and the passenger lost their life. I mean, it's not just that it causes damage. It's outrageous damage. It's outrageous cost to people who live here and any other state that does this. But it's also a potential loss of life or injury that harms you for life. Now, why would you do this outside of some nefarious agenda?
Wholeheartedly agree. I think that unfortunately, there is a leftist agenda when it comes to a lot of the white-tailed deer management programs around and hunting licensing. Why would they want to increase the cost of a license when, you can get so many wonderful, memorable times with your family around a campfire? It's not just about the hunt. If we as hunters really just wanted to kill stuff, I've always said this, Ted would go buy a building, put a bunch of animals in there and blow it up. That's not what it's about. It's about being outdoors and connecting with God's precious design. And white-tailed deer are a precious renewable resource that God has given us. In the Bible, God says to Noah, take thy quiver and thy bow and get me some venison. Okay, here we are, but they want to stop that agenda. It's a liberal agenda. It's a leftist agenda. And unfortunately, like our federal government, we've allowed this leftist agenda to infiltrate our own statewide governments and take control of the Michigan DNR, Texas Parks and Wildlife, and so many others to hire. You're going to pay. How does this make sense? You're going to pay a sharpshooter tax dollars that you and I pay for, rather than letting a dad take his young son to experience the spirit of the wild outdoors, where he's not doing this. He's shutting that down, all the chaos and anxiety, and they get to spend family time together, and they'll remember that forever. So there is an incredible nefarious agenda that has got to be stopped. I think Ted should be a part of the Michigan DNR, and I think he's got some meetings with them coming up soon. But the more that people like you, Tudor, speak out and share your wisdom and your guidance about this, the more people will understand. Unfortunately, 50% of hunters do not vote. 50% of Christians do not vote. So now with Hunter Nation, this organization that we are involved with, and along with Don Trump Jr., we are getting the word out. We are getting people to stop being apathetic, sitting back and going, my vote doesn't matter anyway. It does.
Well, and I think that's the change that we've seen even in people's willingness to talk about being hunters. And you guys have done so much to get rid of the shame that they were trying to put on this group of people who are doing, really, like you said, it's God's work. I mean, we were put on this earth together with animals and told to do this. So it's not like you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. But I just want to say that Ted does these hunts that you're talking about, and he has brought people together and gone on hunts with other people and had people that he doesn't know join him on hunts. And I know this for a fact because my husband's uncle was one of them. Just such a huge fan of his, and they had a friend who had cancer and was dying, and that was his dying wish, and they went out. And I just want you to know that what you guys have done has touched so many families. And that's why Ted fighting here in Michigan and talking to the DNR and helping to make sure this is always available to families is so valuable. We appreciate everything that you guys do, so, more than you will ever know, honestly. But I think I speak on behalf of so many people and so many families and so many fathers and mothers. The girls came home from school the other day and they were like, Mom, do you know how many families hunt? Like my age, my friends, they're big hunters. And I'm like, yeah, this is a big part of people's lives. And they just thought that was so incredible that families take their kids out that are 11 and 9 and 8 years old, and they get to be out there involved in this pastime that their parents are taking them out into the wild and taking them out for days at a time into the wilderness. It's just incredible. And I think it is, you talk about that, I think in the book too, that time spent outdoors and how valuable that can be. And we have faith into that. So tell us a little bit about that.
I do think that my husband will always say that, he doesn't go to church. He goes to commune with God in nature. And I think a lot of people are like that as well. And, this is a blessing to be in charge, to steward the land. And hunters are conservationists at heart. We spend so much on helping the wildlife, feeding the wildlife, managing the wildlife, and our tax dollars go to, especially as buying licenses, we go to preserving the land so the wildlife will thrive. And a lot of people don't understand that and realize that. And thank you for sharing that story. It really is meaningful to us. And, if Ted has a day off, he'll spend it. He'll make phone calls to people who unfortunately are losing their lives for cancer problems or whatever reason. And it's very moving to us as well. And I think that's why God put us on this earth to help each other. And I'll never forget, we had a hunt with not a hunt, but there was a young man, he's 5 years old, young boy, 5 years old named Macon Lynn. And his dying wish, he had terminal cancer. His dying wish was to come to our ranch and spend the day with us. And doesn't that, Tudor, like a bad hair day or, little things that just don't mean anything anymore? That's what this is all about. And if we can help each other and recognize that hunting is, number one, ethical and proper and good for us, healthy for wildlife habitat, and healthy for wildlife. Why are they meaning the government, why are they so against it? And it's incredible to me, but I am so grateful that we have this opportunity to share this hunting lifestyle with so many other people and, just hang out with people by a campfire. It really does make life worthwhile.
Well, I think too often people who are making the decisions in government are not people who have experienced what they're making the decision on. I mean, I oftentimes see people making decisions on small businesses or manufacturers or farming or this or hunting, and they've never had any experience with it themselves. That's why it is so important. I mean, I think that's why people look at what Donald Trump has done and they say, what an amazing situation we have here. And granted, I mean, some people are not looking at that, but I think they will see that. That's why I have faith that they will see that he has brought people together that have experience in all of these different areas. And they're not necessarily ideologically alike. It's not necessarily all Republicans. It's people who believe in what their specific mission is, and he believes in how they look at that mission, whether it is a Pete Hegseth or an RFK or a Tulsi Gabbard. He's bringing people from all different backgrounds who aren't necessarily the historical, I've been in government my whole life. Like you said, we're the government, we're here to help. No, it's people from outside of the government, which I think is how it was meant to be, right?
Yes. And, unfortunately, what the left has done to so many people, especially President Trump, it has prevented good people like you from getting into politics and pursuing that, because there are so many great people that don't have a political background, and God bless them. We've got to start small. We've got to start in our communities, our cities, our states, our counties, and elect people who aren't career politicians, who are businessmen, who look at, no, why would I want to double my hunting license money so that the government can go in and hire sharpshooters? Like, that's just doesn't make sense at all.
Well, so the funny thing is you can get so much more out of that industry by making the industry bigger. I mean, you could bring in so much more revenue from taxes than from licenses. Like if you brought more visitors into the state and you had more sales tax, think about how much you could expand your revenue by expanding that industry rather than shutting it down. It makes no sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense. And unfortunately, a lot of people, like we said, have been apathetic, and they've not wanted to make waves with other people, with businesses. I remember I was banned on Twitter for a pro-Trump tweet. And I did happen to talk about, I've been outspoken about the C19 jab and other things, because I know I'm a label reader. I read the ingredients in that, and I'm like, no, I don't want to put it in my body. I want to get vitamin D from the sun. I want to eat an apple a day, natural things that will help heal my body and make me healthy. Meanwhile, the USDA is flipping the script, and they want to make Fruit Loops and Cheerios as healthy or healthier than eating a steak. We're on to you. We're on to you, and we're coming for you in a way that we will not back down. We are mama bears. We want to protect ourselves and our kids. We want to just be healthy. Would you leave us alone, please?
No, but I think about how tricked we have been and how much people like you speaking out in your book will change this country. Because I think about when I was a kid, we were told not to eat eggs. If you eat eggs, you're going to have a heart attack. I mean, imagine the fact that we were told not to eat eggs, to have butter or margarine instead of butter, to, you were supposed to eat all of these fat-free items. Everything had to be fat-free. And we were just pounding calories and chemicals. I mean, really what we were eating was made of calories and chemicals. Remember those potatoes? You probably are. Well, you may remember this. Remember those potato chips that were Olean? Everybody got sick.
Yes. And, if you look at like fat-free Twinkies, come on, man. Does that right. Having a Diet Coke and a fat-free Twinkie? Again, we've been misled. We've been gaslighted into believing and trusting the government. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Look at the food pyramid. You need to eat now a lot of grains. No, you don't. You need to fill your body with good, clean protein. Get rid of the chemicals. I can sum up my book in just a couple of sentences by become a label reader. Get rid of sugar, white flour. Again, if it's in a box on a shelf for months or even years, don't eat it. Fuel your body with God food, not man-made food. Get exercise, move around. And the other reason about my book that I brought God into it, I'm doing something that I don't think many other people are doing. The publisher asked me, what's different about your book when there are diet and exercise books that are galore out there? Well, I do think there's another element that nobody's talking about, which is spiritual warfare. The devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy, right? How better to do that than to put those negative thoughts in your mind and to get you unhealthy? That's a spiritual attack. So I have a whole chapter devoted to spiritual warfare. He doesn't want us to be healthy. And I think there's a strategy to go about doing it. We've got to, just like we have spiritual warfare practices with, 6 feet back, Satan, you don't belong here, and praying over us. We cannot be apathetic anymore. We've got to be on the offense. And I think that's really a powerful move, especially on behalf of women. But we need to be empowered. We have to realize that God wants us to be healthy, and we're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah, no, I think that's so fascinating. Just a few weeks ago, our pastor was talking about spiritual warfare and how in other countries, they talk about it regularly. They talk about people having demons and all of the stuff. And he said the United States is one of the only places where we don't talk about it because we have to have science describe everything. No, we know this, we know that. And he said, but there is spiritual warfare, and it is in every area of our lives. And we do have to be aware of it. And I agree with you. I think that I look at the unhealthy children that I see around us, and I think, how did this happen, and how did this come to be? And I do think that there's even an obsession with foods. And I mean, look, we have whole industries built around trying to get you addicted to food, right?
Yes.
So it is a problem, and none of it is healthy. It's not like the celery people are out there every day, like, eat celery. That's not the people out there.
Right.
So I mean, I appreciate what you're saying. And I love the fact that like I said, I think this book is for so many people. And I think it's the perfect time. We're at the beginning of the year. Read this book because we all want to start new. I mean, everybody wants to start fresh in January, but I think that we all want to start new in general. We've had this election. We've seen Donald Trump with this overwhelming mandate from the people. Part of that was the Make America Healthy Again movement. So this is the time. Start new, get abundantly well. Make sure you go out and get the book. Tell us where you can get it and how people can start on their journey.
It's available on Amazon, and there are simple, practical tips that you can use, take with you. I want to be your cheerleader. I want to be your coach. I want to help you get healthy now. And it's about the little steps that really make a big difference.
And like I said at the beginning, when I introduced Shemane, this is someone who lives this. I mean, you see it when you are with her, you feel it. You feel this energy. And that's part of the book. It's increasing your energy. It's a vibrant health. Shemane, you are this book. This is who you, and that's why sometimes I see people wrote a book and I'm like, I mean, okay, they're really their subject. This is your subject. Yes. I mean, when I'm around you, I'm like, this is life goals. I want to be you. And so I'm not kidding. Well, you're such an amazing person. You have such a light around you. So I just want to say thank you for coming on. And for everybody out there, this is a lot of people listen to the podcast. If you're watching the podcast, no one would believe that you are in your 60s because you just look amazing, but it's all natural. So thank you so much for sharing this with us. And thanks for coming on today.
Oh, Tudor, thank you so much for having me. God bless you.
Absolutely. And I don't know how you keep up with Ted. So I think that alone is part of it.
I gotta be super healthy. Yeah. I gotta be healthy. Exactly. We both do. We have a lot of work to do with you too.
Yes.
Not like getting our government back on track. And so I thank you for the work that you have done in that area. And I hope that we can work together soon.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. Thank you so much. Thanks for being on today.
Absolutely.
And thank you all for joining us on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. For this episode and others, you can go to TudorDixonPodcast.com or the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us next time on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. Have a blessed day.